I have always attracted spirits. Being part Romany, I'm not sure if it's part of my DNA or just something that's just there. Anyway, I don't do readings. I don't proclaim to be a medium or spiritualist. In fact, not a lot of people know outside my family and close circle. I don't walk down the street and see ghosts or walk into a room and be able to pick up where great Auntie Emma hid the family jewels. And I don't believe that everything we can't explain is paranormal. But what I do believe is my own experiences. And I have had quite a few over the years. There's no rhyme or reason for it. I can't control when it happens. One of my relatives used to say, "She's an old head on young shoulders. That one's lived before." Now, I don't know if that's possible, but I do know, I do believe the veil of the living and the dead is thin. My dad was always a bit of a wheeler dealer. I was always going to see a man about a dog, which actually is an old saying, meaning he was going to the pub to do some type of deal. This usually ended in him coming home with all sorts, from a dinner service to one day walking in with half a cow that he cut up and shared with some of the neighbours. Once, he brought me home a pony. I'd been pestering for one for ages, and one day, there it was in our back garden. Mum made him get rid of it, for which I never forgave. But now understand, there was no way we could keep a pony in our back garden. This day though, he went to the pub to see a man about a dog. He came back with his wagon, and strapped to the back was a huge wardrobe. It was posh, polished wood with carvings on the front. Dad told Mum it was for their room, and Mum delighted at her present. Loved the fact the neighbours could see it being unloaded and carried upstairs by my dad, the man from across the road, and my brother. Mum loved getting one up on the neighbours. It was so big that it had to be taken up in pieces. First the bottom of it, then the middle part, then the door, then the decorative top lintel, and lastly, the 2 church window mirrors. It was decorated beautifully, made of solid mahogany, highly polished, and at least 100 years old. It reached nearly to the ceiling. The door was carved in a coat of arms, of scrolls, 2 lions' heads, and a goblet of something in the middle. There was a huge drawer which my dad plonked me and my sister in playfully, and we fit. The full-length mirrors looked like church windows. Mum was over the moon with it, and once they moved the old one out and into another room, it sat quite proudly in their room. She filled it with their clothes and locked the door shut, putting the key on the top where we couldn't reach. "There," she said. "Now you 2 can't play hide and seek in it," and pulled the clothes out. We did have a habit of playing hide and seek in our mum and dad's room, and my sister was now 6, so we could play together. That night, the posh wardrobe didn't look as posh. It looked ominous. The dark red of the wood shining in the light from the landing. Me and my sister for a short period of time had to share a room, as my brother and his wife had moved back home while waiting for a flat. That night, we were having our usual game of I Spy, because we both knew the Shadow Man would be out soon. So by that point, we knew we were going to get into trouble by Mum anyway, so we were chatting in bed. When we decided to play a game of dare, We each had to go into Mum and Dad's room, shut the door and stay for as long as we could in the dark. Okay, it was a stupid game to play with my 6-year-old sister, but we decided it was a good game for some reason. I went first, as I was the eldest, and my sister would hold the door closed and count in her head. I went into the room and she shut the door. It was pitch black, and I looked in the mirror. Right there and then, I knew I'd made a mistake. I stood there determined that my little sister wasn't going to beat me, and I just stared into the mirror. What looked like a smudge appeared in the left hand of the mirror. The smudge started off like a white, greyish colour, then it started growing. I rubbed my eyes and opened and closed them. It was still there. I have no idea how long I was standing there, but it must have been about 5 minutes. And still, the smudge swirled in the mirror. Then it began to change. It began to form. First I saw what I thought was long, dark pigtails. Then a dress. It looked grey. I don't think there was a pinafore, but there definitely was a dress and long hair. Lastly, what looked like a face started forming. By this point, I was gone. I didn't wait for it to form anymore. I came out and my sister said, "I'm sorry, I lost count." "Doesn't matter," I said. We weren't playing anymore. "But why? I haven't had my turn yet." She looked at me, her big brown eyes begging. "I told you, sis, we aren't playing. Mum will be up soon anyway, and we have school tomorrow." She followed me back to our room, and we went to bed. Luckily, the rest of the night, from what I remember, was uneventful. I don't think I still believed what I saw even the next morning, even with what I'd experienced with the shadow man. My mind kept saying, "You imagined it, one ghost is enough." So I forgot all about it, or more probable, I pushed it from my mind, and soon my brother moved out into his own place with his wife and son, and me and my sister went back to our own rooms. The next time it happened, we had one of my sisters staying with her children, so me and my sister had to sleep in Mum and Dad's room in a single bed, top and tail. The first night, nothing happened. Then a week without anything. But the following week my sister was lying in bed when she suddenly sat up. "Sis," she hissed, tapping my foot. "Look." Her brown eyes were like saucers. I sat up and looked behind me, and there she was, full-bodied, and there in the room with us, a girl. Well, in the mirror anyway. We both sat there staring. I have no idea how long we stared at her, and she stared back. I didn't feel a threat. We were shocked, obviously, but she didn't feel like she was going to hurt us. She looked more puzzled, like she was shocked the room she was seeing was not hers. Her hair was long and dark in 2 plaits. Her eyes were dark coloured but not hollow. She wore a white ribbon in her hair, and her dress stopped short of her ankles, which looked grey. Then she melted away just like that. I crawled up the bed to my little sister, hoping she wasn't terrified. She was a hard little soul, and she just looked at me and said, "Do you know what, sis? I think she was looking for Mum and Dad." I lay down beside her and asked her if she was scared. "No," she said, "because I think she wants us to be friends." "Maybe you're right, little one, but promise me you won't try to make friends with her unless I'm here with you." "I promise," she said, offering her pinky to me. We didn't see the little girl that often, and if we did, she was always dressed the same, with the same hairstyle, and always with the same puzzled expression. There was never any interaction with her. I now think it was a replay, like a tape playing over and over. Maybe she has stood in that mirror in her room over and over again to make sure she was presentable. I don't think she was capable of communication and was probably not aware of us. When we moved house, the wardrobe was in my mum's room because of the illness my dad had. My mum was able to move to a house that had a parlour as well as a living room, and my dad slept in there. One night, he was lying in bed when he saw a young girl walk down the stairs. Thinking it was either me or my sister, he called us by name, and she didn't answer. My dad said the most shocking thing about it was she walked straight through the closed front door. He shouted upstairs for us all to come, which we did, and he swore he'd seen one of us walk through the door. He described the girl as having plaits and a white ribbon. Her dress was grey, which came to just above her ankles. Of course, my mum told him he was too old to be scaring the kids with ghost stories. Little did she know that her turn would come. A few weeks later, she was in the kitchen when I got in from work. She looked pale and was quieter than normal. She had, of course, over the years heard all the stories us kids had told her, and it was only a few weeks since my dad had seen his own apparition. So she was hesitant to tell me what was wrong. When I finally talked her round into telling me, she said that she was putting the washing away in her room that afternoon. When she was folding up the washing on the bed, she felt someone watching her. She looked up and, in the mirror, she saw a girl looking at her. She said she backed out of the room and hadn't been back up there since. A few days later, Dad had the wardrobe appraised by an antique dealer, and they struck a deal. And that very same day, the wardrobe was gone. After that, my mum and Dad began saying it was all imagined. They denied for the rest of their lives what they both witnessed. I do wonder where the wardrobe went. Was it sold, or is it still in an antique shop somewhere, having been sold over and over? Is that girl still coming for a peek into the future? And is she still puzzled as to where her room is?